What do we got? Anything else?
Does your single poly wire keep in the guard dogs?
Yes and no. Like,
Yeah.
if the guard dogs want to leave, they can leave. Mm-hmm. It's very, very difficult to keep a dog in, just because they're creative.
Netting will keep a dog in.
Yeah, netting will 100% keep a dog in, but because we don't use netting, they figure out how to jump over it.
They'll get going real fast and run and then duck underneath it, just slip underneath it. Plus, they got enough hair on them that it kind of insulates them. But
and even on our farms with our perimeter fence, they figure out a way to get through that, through gates, under gates, stuff like that. They're super creative when it comes to leaving. So therefore, you need to just make it so there's no real reason to want to leave. They got
food.
That's where their food is.
They're bonded to the sheep.
Because you train them since they were puppies to be bonded onto the sheep. They're not, if they do start roaming, there's a couple different things you could do. If they're a male and a female and they're not fixed, as in they're intact, they still have their reproductive parts, you can try to either spay them or neuter them, and that will reduce the reason to roam, and that's what we did to we just did that to one of our best guard dogs. You'd argue, oh, why don't you breed with Lady, because she's the best dominant dog that you've got, so why wouldn't you want puppies from that? I see that argument, but I also see the argument of the fact that the only reason she ever left the flock was because she was in heat. And so that's just, as soon as the dog leaves the flock, that's when bad stuff starts to happen. They get hit by a car, they get shot on somebody else's property. It's just not a good deal. So
even the other day, every other guard dog, big guard, mature guard dog left, and because Sheila was in heat. Sheila was in heat, so Big Boy followed, so the wild dog followed, so Sarah followed. Lady stayed in with the sheep, and she was in there by herself.
Yep.
For it was 4 days or something
like that. So getting them fixed is option one. If you really don't want to do that, you could try putting what we would call a drag on the dog, and this is sort of a touchy solution, because we've had it backfire on us with dogs and they just go completely wild on you doing it, but it's worked in the past for Greg, I guess. And what he's done in the past is take just a dog collar, normal standard dog collar, and a little length of chain, and then tie maybe a foot piece of heavy duty sidewall from either an earth moving tire or a tractor tire. Yeah, just like a big heavy piece of rubber, and it hits their front legs. You don't want it super long, but you don't want it really short either, because you don't really want them to have to be lifting it constantly. But just sort of happy medium of kind of on the ground, kind of not. And it hits their front legs, so it's really hard for them to run and move very fast without there being a lot of effort and resistance. And so that's even more reason to not go anywhere, is to just eat and stay where you're at. And you do that for a period of time, and then you take it off, and hopefully they stay in. But we've had a backfire on us where the dogs just completely freak out. They've got this thing attached to them, and we went from having this one dog that we called a wild dog that we could pet him when we first got here, and we put a drag on him because he was roaming, and we
freaked him out.
Absolutely freaked him out. The first time they did it before we got here, he got beat up so badly that they had to bring him into the stock trailer and get stitches and the whole deal. But we did it a second time when we were here, because he started roaming again and absolutely freaked out, would not move with the sheep. So we took it off of him, and that was the last time we ever caught him, ever.
Touched him.
He is so crafty when it comes to, he's totally comfortable when you're in the paddock just doing a sheep move, something like that. But even with a sheep move, he'll go zipping out of the paddock when you move the sheep and wait for you to leave.
The closest he'll ever get is 20 feet away. That's the closest he's been to me since we put that drag on.
Yeah, and when the sheep move happens, he'll be 100 yards away, 500 yards away, just watching off in a different paddock. And then when you leave, he'll figure out a way to get back into the sheep. Mm-hmm. And even we try to get the sheep up into the corral, to get him in the corral, to be able to sell him, or not sell him, to be able to get rid of him, and he won't go in the corral. He knows, and he'll be 500 yards away from the sheep. But if you're just going in there, doing your normal thing, not doing checking mineral, filling dog food or whatever, 20 feet, 50 feet, he'll be right there.
Tail wagging, smile on his face.
He's a problem, though, because he's training some of the younger dogs to try to roam a little bit. So we're probably just going to have to put him down. Because that's the problem with the guard dog business, is these dogs, when they're trained to be guard dogs, when they don't work out, they're not, you can't have them as pets, because they're not pets. They're basically a wild dog. They're a couple steps away from a coyote or a wolf. And so they just have to be put down because they've been trained for a specific purpose and they don't fulfill that purpose, so they just can't really exist anywhere.
You can't just let them go free because they're going to be, it's like letting anything
it's the biggest
go free.
It's the biggest downside to the guard dog business. Really, is dealing with guard dogs that don't work out.
I would put a lot of emphasis on be cautious if you want to get
into the guard dog business. Yep.
Don't think it's going to be very easy because it's not. It's not that it's not not that it's not rewarding.
Yep.
But it's not easy.
No. It's a lot of work. So anyway,
and you can do everything right, and it can still go wrong. So just have that in mind.
Mm-hmm. So yeah, long story short, the single wire doesn't really keep the dogs in. It's just that a good dog doesn't want to leave. Mm-hmm. That's sort of the short answer to that.